Welcome to Bible Prayers and Untold Stories, where every whisper verse is truth, and every story brings light to the soul. Let us journey through the sacred words and uncover the wisdom hidden in prayer. Here is a little-known fact. When a pope is anointed, the throne does not belong to a mere man. It is the key that opens the gate between heaven and earth, where visible power collides with invisible mystery. Under Leo XIV, the Vatican was no longer just a symbol. It became a living organism, every beat controlled by silent souls. People hidden between light and shadow, but weaving the sacred destiny of the Church. Narrator: 7 men, 7 gates, 7 torches that light the path of the Vatican in the new era. Who are they? Why were they chosen? And what is being prepared behind the most closely guarded doors of the Church? This is not a political story, nor is it just history, but a journey into the heart of faith, where prayer meets the will of God, where the breath of man touches eternity. Come in with us, for behind every pope, there are those who silently write the next chapter of sacred history. St. Peter's Square at midnight. All is quiet. Candles flicker in the Sistine Chapel. The light flickers on Michelangelo's frescoes. In the heart of Rome, when the bells are silent and the curtain of night covers the cathedral, there is a silent movement taking place, not on the throne, not on the pages of the papal bull, but behind in the darkness, where prayers are said without microphones. Decisions are not televised. White smoke rises from the Sistine chimney. The crowd cheers under moonlight, but the camera zooms in, where advisors emerge in the conference room with pensive eyes. Leo XIV, the name announced under the dome of St. Peter's Basilica, is not just a new pope. He is the initiator of a new symphony, and like all conductors, he does not play alone. The hand with the fisherman's ring rests lightly on an ancient score. The music intertwines with the sound of prayers and the echo of footsteps. The Vatican is a divine symphony, and each pontificate is a new chapter in that symphony. To create that music, it takes not only the heart, but also the hands. 7 living instruments, 7 anonymous figures, are the first notes that sound under Leo XIV. 7 figures walk through the Vatican corridors, nameless, wordless. A man stands before a map of the world. A man writes a handwritten letter. A nun sits quietly beside a pile of files. This is the silent council, not the princes of the Church, but the guardians of the dream of heaven in a time of turmoil. In the most hidden corners of the Vatican, the secret office, the dusty Vatican library, the liturgical vaults, the bell tower where only a few are allowed to set foot, a pope can change the sermon, but only those behind the scenes can shape the direction. They are the anonymous masters of the Church's conscience, a compass in the storms of theology in the times. Handwritten Bible pages, codes, ancient seals, leading to a round table, where 7 seats appear, each with a symbol, a cross, a map, a ring, a file, and now they are gathered, not to dominate, but to serve a mission higher than the rain, that of guarding the soul of the Church. The bells rang out in the dark chapel. The doors opened, and one by one they stepped into the light. Cardinal Proin, Tagle, Gallagher. No one spoke, but their faces contained a silent universe. Behind the throne of St. Peter, there are shadows that listen more than speak, that kneel before the truth more than ascend the throne. They are the foundation, the unseen ringing bell, but it resounds far and resounds forever, sliding down the Vatican corridors covered in morning mist. A red-robed figure walks alone, holding a rosary, the light from the window frame slanting over his shoulder. When people look up at the throne of St. Peter, they see a pope, but behind that halo, there are people who do not need light to shine, because they are the silent light that maintains a divine order. Cardinal Proin sits in his closed library, geopolitical maps spread out like maps of an invisible battlefield. He places a small cross on each country. His name does not appear in the press, but every letter sent from the Holy See bears the mark of his hand, the hand that draws the diplomatic map with the ink of faith and the language of silence. The scene changes to a secret meeting. The light is dim, the voice is as low as a prayer. People listen to him not because he speaks loudly, but because he doesn't need to speak much. They call him the Pope in the dark, not because he claims power, but because he carries a burden that others don't see. China, Russia, the Middle East, no one has ever spoken to Rome before speaking to him. A stone room, light only flickers through a small window shaped like a cross. On the table is an open Codex Iuris Canonici. Mamberti's hand is writing notes in black ink. If Proin is the Vatican strategist, Cardinal Dominique Mamberti is the principal one, so that the Vatican doesn't lose itself. Not bricks and stones, but each word he writes, the sacred stones that build the faith. He looks straight into the lens, his eyes deep as if he has witnessed hundreds of reforms, but still maintains an unshakable spirit. Every dynasty wants a reform way, but who will remind them? Reform cannot be chaos. Renewal cannot be a denial of roots. He is the one who draws the invisible border between light and the impersonation of light. A closed room in the Vatican. Proin and Mamberti sit together before a map and a copy of the canon law. They do not argue, do not agree quickly, but nod silently after minutes of meditative silence. Point one guards a relationship with the world. The other guards a relationship with heaven. They are not opposites. They are two doors leading to the heart of the life of the Church, a place both present in human history and beyond time. The cathedral, vaulted ceilings, sealed documents, ended with the image of a statue of St. Peter with his hand resting on a heavy stone book, a metaphor for unbreakable truth. The Vatican is not a fortress of power. The Vatican is a rampart that keeps the soul of humanity from disintegrating. And there, Cardinal Proin and Cardinal Mamberti are not just gatekeepers. They keep order between the earthly and the sacred. One writes on paper, the other on conscience. Waves crash on the shores of Manila in a purple sunset, interspersed with images of thousands of people praying in a simple church. An Asian man in a vestment wipes away tears as he preaches. The Church needs more than intellect. The Church needs a heart that can shed tears for human suffering. Cardinal Tagle stands among his parishioners in a poor Filipino village. Someone touches his sleeve. He bends down to embrace a ragged child, and his eyes fill with tears. Luis Antonio Tagle. He was called the Prophet of Mercy because he did not teach with books, but with the real pain that touched his heart. The moment Tagle placed a fisherman's ring on the hand of Pope Leo XIV, not as a ceremony, but as a sacred ceremony between two souls who understood each other. That gesture, not just a coronation ceremony, but a silent covenant between wisdom and love, between the one holding the shepherd's staff and the one holding the heart of the flock. Africa, the Amazon, the ruined church in the Middle East. His voice echoed through that image like a whisper of the Father. Tagle, in his own voice. We cannot speak of God without hearing the cries of the children of Aleppo. We cannot praise the faith while beside us is a mother who has lost her child to war. With each of his sermons, the Church moves closer to where the light has not yet reached, and each tear he sheds is a new psalm for our time. Cardinal Michael Czerny, dressed in civilian clothes, stood in a refugee camp, ate with immigrants, built tents together, washed the feet of strangers. Michael Czerny, not sitting on a throne, but sitting on the mud, next to people without nationality, without passports, without names. He did not come to preach. He came to hold his breath, to hunger, to fatigue, to hope. His words were not sharp as knives, but hot as hot coals, burning indifference with the fire of true love. Tagle and Czerny passed each other in the Vatican corridor. They did not speak, they just bowed their heads. But from each one, a ray of light spreads. One the warm yellow light of hope, the other the fiery red of justice. One brings human pain to the altar. One brings the light of God to the refugee camp. Both are not just messengers. They are the beating heart of the living Church. Tagle preaches in the darkness of a storm. Czerny whispers a prayer amid the sirens. A choir in Africa sings Veni Sancte Spiritus amid dust and tears. Mission is not about conquering. It is about going where pain lingers the longest and sowing there a prayer that does not need words, just presence. That is how the Church lives, not by power, but by tears. Black screen, gradually brightened by the moving binary code. interspersed with images of ancient churches. Stone walls, burning candles, chanting in the darkness. The camera pans slowly into the eyes of a man who sees both worlds. We are living in the end of the old and the beginning of the unprecedented, a world where humans are not just creating machines, but are trying to create people. And at this crossroads, the church is forced to answer a question. If the soul has no source code, where is it in the digital age? I the old but radiant face of Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia. He stands at the podium. Behind him are the words, Pontifical Academy for Life. Cut to, he is silently entering the AI research room, talking to the technical experts. Paglia, no warrior, but he is guarding the most fierce battlefield of the human soul. Artificial intelligence point two hands, one of flesh and blood, one of metal, gradually move closer to each other, interspersed with the words, genetic modification, conscious AI, the limits of humanity. He did not come to say no. He came to ask, if we can do it, should we do it? He is pictured in dialogue with both atheist scientists and traditional priests. His eyes listen, not judge. Not everyone agrees with him, but in an age driven by the speed of coding, Paglia is a rare person who dares ask, can the soul be copied? A nun in a simple habit walks through a door engraved with a Vatican emblem. No one greets, no cameras, but the light that follows her steps is an invisible witness. In a world where power still takes on a male form, there is one person who does not need a throne to shape the destiny of the Vatican, Sister Raffaella Petrini. She does not preach. She does not preach. She operates. She organizes. She keeps the Vatican from falling apart day by day. Camera pans over files, budgets, internal processes. Scene. Sister Petrini leads a silent session, everyone listening as if she wields a sacred authority. None of her sermons are quoted, but every word of the memos she reviews is imbued with the Jesuit spirit, the spirit of service, the spirit of contemplation amid reality, combining two worlds. Sister Petrini walks through the administrative corridor. Outside, the nuns pray in the candlelit chapel. The background music rises like a whisper in the silence. You might think the Vatican is a machine, but thanks to people like her, it has become a monastery. A monastery where every file, every number, every decision is a secret prayer to God. Paglia writes in her notebook, La verita è ante alta la logica. Truth is beyond logic. Sister Petrini lights a small candle in her office. The camera slowly recedes to the starry sky above the Vatican. While the world creates gods out of silicon, the Church still keeps its own living light, a light that is not born of electronics, but of souls that no one knows the name of, but that no one can replace. Against the twilight sky, St. Peter's dome seems to be covered in a silver mist. The organ sounds far away, the melody unclear, like an echo from another dimension. No one carries the Church alone. Even Peter, the rock, needs pillars to stand around. And in the era of Leo XIV, a silent symphony is being played not from instruments, but from souls. The camera cuts back and forth between the 7 characters who have appeared in the previous 4 parts. Proin walking on a geopolitical map, Mamberti reading a draft law, Tagle wiping away the tears of parishioner, Czerny sitting next to an immigrant, Paglia holding a rosary at an AI conference, Petrini examining the budget, Gallagher signing a diplomatic document. They are not of the same style. They are not of the same age. They do not come from the same starting point. But each one carries a light. And together, they are the Council of Light. A circle of light opens in the middle of the Sistine Chapel, where each one sits at a point, but does not speak. Each light from them merges into one, drawing a symbol of fire. The narration is accompanied by abstract frames representing love, wisdom, service, prayer, law, hope, vigilance, as the Church enters a world of doubt. Holiness is not in words, but in presence. Without speaking loudly, they listen more loudly. Without leading the crowd, they guard the light for the world. The camera gradually shifts to a quiet night in St. Peter's Square. No lights, no people, but from above, the moonlight pours down like a blessing. Miracles sometimes appear not in a burst of light, but an array of hope that is not extinguished. That is why God still chooses silent people to shake the world. The choir begins to play an original piece of music, silent symphony, without words, just breathing, the sound of wind, the sound of church bells in the distance, mixed with soft music. The camera zooms in on the faces of the 7 characters, then pans out to the entire Vatican from above. Each person seems to be stepping into eternal light. In a world filled with controversy, there are people who just need to take a light step to leave an eternal echo, because faith, when lived in silence, will resonate further than any eloquence. Pope Leo XIV kneels alone in prayer. No throne, no crown, just a son in the Father's house. The camera slowly moves up. The candlelight beside him burns brighter. Behind the white robe, there are always silent shadows, but it is they who keep the light of God from ever going out in the world.